Hello, everybody. Welcome to another thrilling episode of Pitch Slap. Today, I have no idea what Stefan's planning on talking about, but I am excited to hear it. Both me and my dog are excited to hear it. So, Stefan, without further ado, take it away.
Thank you
Surprise.
very much, Dan the Man. That dog is adorable. Aw. All right. So in superhero news, right? This is not an original character. I don't even know if it's technically an original idea if they've done it or not. But I think the ingredients that go into what I'm talking about are my own. So, as I'm sure everyone's stoked for, Spider-Man, No Way Home, right? And it's bringing back a variety of familiar faces: Alfred Molina, William Dafoe, Jamie Foxx, right? The Lizard, Sandman, all characters from every Spider-Man movie that's been in cinemas, from Sam Raimi to Mark Webb's films, right? Tobey and Andrew's movies, as well as Tom Holland's. And he just got greenlit for another trilogy of movies, right? So we're not gonna lose Spider-Man anytime soon. But what I think would be cool is if they did the Batman Beyond type thing, where they had old man Peter Parker. So basically, my Spider-Man pitch is we've followed Peter Parker, right, and his exploits both on his own and with the Avengers since he was in high school up to a young man, a middle-aged man, right? Maybe not middle-aged, but early 20s, right? He's out of college now. And Mary Jane and him are in love, right? But she also knows, being Spider-Man, there are dangers, right? He has enemies, which puts her at risk, her family, their family if they have kids, at risk. Now, this becomes a big question of what to do, because on one hand, there are other heroes in New York who can save the day. It does not always have to be Peter. There are other heroes across the world that can step in. It does not always have to be Peter. So I guess what I'm suggesting is it opens with this idea that they're dating, right? They're older, right? Like they're in their mid-20s when people decide to get engaged and stuff, and they're engaged. Now, some event has happened, right, that really makes Mary Jane think, right? So let's say someone innocent died, right? Peter was able to get the bad guy, but a civilian died, right? So really traumatic experience, because then you see that person's family on the news, right? Mourning the loss, thanking Spider-Man for saving everyone, but also still upset because they lost someone they love. And Mary Jane starts wondering, well, when is that going to be me, right? When's that going to be our child, right? She's pregnant, perhaps, at this point. So she tells Peter, look, I love you, and I want you to be, my husband and the father of my children, and I want us to have a life. But, I can't have this coming into our door. I can't have people threatening our children on a daily basis if they find out who you are. So he's tasked with this of putting up his mantle, and right, he can't be Spider-Man if he wants to have the family, that he so longs for. So this is a world without Spider-Man, right? Peter Parker has stopped being Spider-Man, right? He's told the Avengers, I can't do this anymore, right? And I'm sorry, and then with him out of the picture, raising his family, perhaps crime has fluctuated, right? But now this, I think, enters in the possibility of other people. You know how they retire numbers in sports, right? Whatever 42 is retired number. I don't know many other retired numbers, but 42 for Jackie Robinson, and they're not going to recast Black Panther, right? They're not doing that, or at least Chadwick Boseman's role. Well, Tobey Maguire, Peter might not be Spider-Man, but the Avengers are looking for somebody else to be fill that role, right? To watch over this section of New York and to step in when that happens. Now, this doesn't mean Oscorp has stopped doing the experiments they've done. It doesn't mean anything. Everything else is moving on except Peter. Now, as Peter's getting older in age and doing his family thing, this is gone, and we see a montage of people trying out, not necessarily making the fit, not getting there. And what ends up happening is I feel like this would open the doors for Miles Morales to come into the picture, and however he goes about, his getting bit by the spider, or getting, some powers. I haven't really fleshed that aspect out. But what I'm thinking is then these villains that Peter put away, they start coming back. So now you have Peter who is old, right? So it flashes forward now, and he's old man Peter. And Mary Jane has died, his children are all grown, and he's an elderly man. And these villains are coming back, and they don't know how to stop them. So now they have to go to him for help, and now he puts the suit back on, like one last crusade. Mm-hmm. So I feel like this would be called like the final web, or last web standing, or something like that. And this is Peter Parker sacrificing himself, going out as the hero he was, having the life he wanted, but fully cementing like, I am Spider-Man, and I'm going out saving everybody. So he dies. But he dies laying the groundwork and teaching this other young man how to be a superhero, how to balance things, right? How having that like Yoda Obi-Wan figure, but it's letting him go into the sun like Icarus. So that's my pitch.
That's really cool. It sounds. Have you seen Into the Spider-Verse?
Yeah.
Sounds like a darker version of Into the Spider-Verse. Like probably the darker version like is your integration of like the Batman-esque features of it too. Did you say it was like Batman Beyond was the inspiration for this? Yeah, I really see like sort of like those things connecting here. It's really, really cool. Yeah, I guess my question is, when you're picturing this Peter Parker, is this like a totally new Peter Parker, as you know, from Toby, Andrew, and the new kid,
Tom Holland?
Tom Holland, yes. Or is it like one of those that you were picturing, like taking their story, like jumping off from?
I feel like if they've already, since they're bringing, if they didn't do the Spider-Verse thing, right? I feel like they should have done it with Tobey Maguire.
Yeah.
Like as a way to bring him back, they could have done that. But I think if they're gonna keep with Tom Holland, I think they could follow him up until a certain point in life, right? At least this Peter Parker I'm talking about, he could play him up until a certain point. And then what they do is they have that scene where the civilian or someone's like loses someone, and Mary Jane gives him kind of an ultimatum. And then he kind of steps to the side, and then they like make him old, or they bring in somebody older to play like old man Tom Holland Peter Parker.
Yeah. Okay, so I get you. This is sort of, it sounds almost like a little bit of a pitch for this new trilogy, like setting
yes.
up. Okay, cool. That's really cool. Because when you were pitching it, it sounded like a lot of the elements reminded me of the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man. Like the MJ sounded a lot like the MJ there. So it's interesting how like you sort of combine those features and also throw them into like the new Spider-Man lore too, which I just think is really cool. Yeah. I guess, so what do you think? So you said that Spider-Man, old man Spider-Man, has to take up the mantle again to get rid of like the bad guys that he had like put away. Like, why would he want to do that again after like he chose that life? Was that always something like nagging at him, or was he just willing to like put away the Spider-Man suit?
I feel like he probably it would nag at him, but it's also like I don't know. I guess I'm not as tight close to Peter Parker as like I know more about Bruce Wayne. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? But I feel like Peter Parker didn't know his father. You know what I mean? And I don't think if he's having kids, he wouldn't want his children to have to endure what he went through. Like he wants them to know who he is, and he wants to be a part of their life and to be there. You know, so I guess that's kind of his main focus. Like at first he's maybe like really pissed at her and they fight and argue, and then like later he thinks about it and he's like, I understand. Like I understand.
I have a question. Spider-Man's kids, do they have powers?
That's a very good question. I don't know. I don't know. I think maybe they just I feel like for this purpose we don't know that. Maybe one of them might. Like I feel like that's something they could access, but I feel like more with him out of the picture, it opens the door for like another young man or woman, right, to kind of have this similar yet different origin tale that needs to be told but still is connected to Parker's, right? Like this Tom Holland Parker, because he can talk about if they end up doing the other universes in Avengers, he can talk about this information with this young man. It's like, look, this is the information that you're going to become privy to. These are
Yeah.
the responsibilities you're going to have to put on your shoulders if you do this, you know? So I feel like he becomes that kind of thing, and then the movie would end where they're fighting like probably a new villain and of an old villain, right? Like a similar idea. This new villain has gone to an older version of like Doctor Octopus or the Vulture or this like whomever, someone that's clearly fought Spider-Man before, but this new villain is like, I'm not going to make the same mistakes. You tell me everything you know. So now you have one old, one new bad guy, one new, one old good guy going at it. But in the end, Peter wants to go out standing, right? He doesn't want to go out old and on his back. He's going out fighting. So he like pushes the kid away or something, and whatever he ends up does kills or ends with the bad guys either perishing, right? Them dying, them getting arrested, but he ends up dying, right? So now Peter Parker's dead, and now this new person is who we're referring to as Spider-Man or Spider-Gwen or whatever character they're going with.
Yeah. That was so. I really love that idea of like an older, like sort of like wizened Spider-Man, like teaching a newer Spider-Man like the ropes a little bit. Obviously they did some of that in Into the Spider-Verse, but I also think like they didn't take it to like an old Spider-Man. It was always like 30-year-old Spider-Man. You know what I mean? So I think it would be like really cool to see like what Peter Parker looks like as an old man, especially after it sounds like he's pretty lonely the way you painted him. Like Mary Jane has died, his kids are grown up. Like, what does he do now? You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And like, what are his limitations? Because I imagine like he's not a spry chicken anymore. Yeah, he has superpowers, but he's not exactly like into the swing of things.
Yeah.
So I think that's like a really cool thing, like pairing somebody who is old, wizened, maybe a little grumpy with somebody who is like a fresh face, maybe a little bit more like enthusiastic, like just like I think that's just always kind of a cool pairing, when you have that together. So yeah, I'm really down. I guess what parts of the Batman lore are you interested in bringing into Spider-Man? Because like I don't really know enough about like the Batman lore to like specifically pinpoint like, oh, you did this, but I of course you know it because you're a master of Batman. So yeah.
Too kind. I guess just like the idea, like Batman has Robins, right, or Nightwing, Robin, and etc. And
Yeah.
eventually they do in the comics. Some of them do end up taking the mantle of Batman, right? It's not Bruce Wayne, it's Dick Grayson who is wearing the cowl. So I feel like it should be a handing of the torch rather than constantly rebranding. Oh, this is the continuity version of this character, right? Like, oh, from here on out, our franchise with Batman or Spider-Man or Wonder Woman is this person. Instead of just like, well, no, that character's arc is done, and now it's time to hand. Oh, you need a new slot for someone else to come. Like there are maybe not thousands, but there are multiple other Spider per people
Well, yeah.
that they could like stop making Spider-Man and be like, oh, it's Spider Gwen, or it's Silk, or it's Miles Morales. Like I know from the
Spider-Verse.
Spider Verse, that's what it focused on. But like that could be his from now on. That's where the franchise is going to go. It's going to follow him, or it's going to follow Silk, or it's going to follow Lady Spider or whatever she's called.
Yeah.
Spider Woman, like I think that idea is something that comic book movies need to start adapting or thinking about instead of just revamping it again with somebody different, because it's like we know the backstory. We know this villain. We know that villain. What we want to see is someone actually have a complete arc. Like obviously movies aren't like life, right? Because you can go back and do this, but I think people would get more attached to a character if they know you have a beginning, a middle, and ultimately a send-off,
Yeah. Yeah, I think so too. And I think you're making this story pitch like that's also very self-aware of like what has been going on with the Spider-Man brand. Like they've done 3 reboots within like the past 20 years. You know what I mean? Like at some point you got to like stop making a Peter Parker movie. Like Peter Parker, unless you make him more interesting, which I think your version does. Like if he's not like a kid anymore, like what does that look like? I think that instantly makes it a little bit more interesting there. But I also think like you're right. Like maybe if we get out of like how do we transition from a Peter Parker story to just like a Spider-Man story, that is without Peter Parker in some way, So I think it's interesting the way you did it. Like, in your version, he goes out and he dies. He doesn't just like hand the suit over and is like, okay, peace. Like I trust you. Like he goes out and he dies, and somebody else, probably like, the new person has to learn from that experience. Yeah, they were saved from Peter Parker. It sounds like in the way you pitched it, pushes the kid out of the way so that he can like, save the day. But I also think that's sort of a learning experience. So it's really cool. And maybe like Peter Parker could be like the Uncle Ben moment.
Yes, exactly. Right, where he calls back to that line, with great power comes great responsibility. And he is like, if you want power, then you need to know what you're responsible for.
Yeah.
And so then he shows the kid, like, this is what you're responsible for,
Yeah, I just think it's interesting. Like they didn't show it in the new Spider-Man movies, like the Uncle Ben dying thing. Like I think they totally tried to avoid that, but it's interesting. Like Spider-Verse, the Andrew Garfield version and the Tobey Maguire version, like they all had some uncle dying in it, and I mean, I think that's just part of like the Spider-Man origin story. They tried to remix it as much as possible, but I think it would be interesting if like it's not really the uncle that dies; it's just like a meaningful person, like a mentor. And it sounds like the Peter Parker in your version is sort of like that mentor, to the new person that he's going to be handing the mantle to. So yeah. So I think really cool ideas, stuff. Yeah.
Thanks, Dan DeMann.
Does what's his name? The friend in the new Spider-Man series.
Ned.
Ned, yes. What is Ned doing in your version?
I feel like after he gives up Spider-Man, they probably stay connected for a little while, but then unfortunately drift apart.
Yeah,
You know, I feel like that might happen, or maybe Ned dies, and that's what shocks him. You know, because that's somebody close to him.
maybe that's the innocent person.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
because it's like Ned just died, and you did everything you could, and he still died. When is that
yeah.
going to be me? Right, and that's maybe how Mary Jane puts it. Like after the funeral, like he comes back. Yeah, no, that's a great idea. So maybe that's it. Ned is the catalyst for all of this, right? Whatever bout he's having with somebody, he saves the day for the most part, but Ned still dies.
Or maybe Ned can be a villain.
Yeah, or like maybe they think Ned died, and then he becomes, like you said, a villain all these years later.
And then he threatens Mary Jane because he knows Peter Parker's identity.
Yes, exactly.
No, I just that was a lot of melodrama I just pitched to you, but
Melodrama's
yeah.
good.
Well, yeah, it's part of the superhero brand, but yeah, I don't know. That character's just like kind of funny in he's like the goofball in the new series, so I was just interested to see like if you had any ideas for him in your version. So yeah, I really like this stuff, and I say you get in touch with Marvel Comics.
Kevin Feige, give us a call.
Yeah, and who would, if you could cast an adult Peter Parker, who would it be?
I oddly feel like Kiefer Sutherland would be a good old man Peter Parker.
Yeah, that's a good casting choice.
And I feel like he's someone who's known, he's a name, but he's underrated. Like, not that he's always, like, in a lot of ways I think he plays a lot of the same people, so, but I think this might give him more range and, like, something he could, like, be more, like, more heart in his roles. And if
He plays a lot of grizzled people, like, as of late. So, like, yeah, I feel like your version is a little grizzled, but also it's Peter Parker, so he's got heart,
So I would cast him as Peter, and then if I could cast Miles Morales, it would be the young man who plays, oh God, in Stranger Things. There is Dustin.
Caleb Mclaughlin.
Yes.
I think that's his name. Yes.
I think
it's I don't mean to speak over you. Sorry.
No. I apologize, Dan. My internet is crappy right now, so it's breaking up. So I am really sorry to speak over you.
No. But Caleb Mclaughlin, I think that's his name. Yeah, that's a good choice.
So him as Miles, Kiefer as Old Man Peter, and I don't know who else I would cast, but those two people, and then I would like it if Sam Raimi came back and like finished that off. I also thought Mark Webb did a really good job with the Amazing Spider-Man films. Or Kevin Smith. I think Kevin Smith would do a damn good job doing it.
I know of Kevin Smith. I don't know of any movies he's made before, but I trust you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Kevin Smith, because he's a huge comic book fan, and I think he would really do it justice, because he's such a fan of the material, and he wouldn't want to disrespect it in any way.
Yeah. Didn't he, I could be thinking of the wrong person, but the animated show, Invincible, was he part of that?
No, but that would be good too. No.
You want to Spider-Man annihilate all of the other superheroes?
Or something maybe like down that road, but like whoever did Invincible, I think actually who produced that is Seth, the guy from Superbad, Seth Rogen.
Oh.
Him and his producing partner, and then Robert Kirkman. I don't know who directs that.
Robert Kirkman. That's the name I was thinking. But
okay.
Yeah, Seth Rogen. Interesting.
But I think, yes, Kevin Smith has done Mallrats. He does a lot of comedies. He did some Red State. I don't know if you've seen Red State. Red State's pretty bananas, like in a Grizzly kind of too real for me type way, but it's good. But yeah, Kevin Smith, Kiefer, and Caleb. I forget his last name.
McLaughlin.
McLaughlin. Yes, I think those two and him would make something. Last web standing. That would be, or the final web, or something like that.
Yeah, I dig it. I dig it, man.
I appreciate you listening, Dan the Man, and your thoughts. And I
Yeah.
like the idea you had. I think Ned is the catalyst. Ned dies. That's what happens. Makes Mary Jane wonder, when's that me? Sets everything in forth.
What does Ned do? He's like taking a video, and he's just a truck falls on him.
Yeah, something like that. Or like he thinks it's over, and he turns, right, to walk, like, or whatever. And like something, like he's just, the villain's just like, click something.
Yeah.
Dead.
I imagine he goes out being a goofball. It ends up like he's like, oh, I'm going to take a video of this. And then just like something explodes. It's like, well, yeah. But all good ideas, Stefan. I'm really digging it. I think blending Batman and Spider-Man is a really good, cool idea. So like, good idea, Stefan.
Well,
I feel like we should blend, like, I know that they have a lot of people try to put like the line in the sand between like DC and like Marvel, but I think it would be cool to like blend some of like the ideas though. You know what I mean? Come up with something new. So sounds like that's what you were trying to do.
Well, I appreciate that, buddy. I do, and thanks for chatting with me more about this. I think Marvel could win some ground if they went like just a couple shades darker than their normal color palette. If you're trying to make them relatable, part of life is pain, and so. But
yeah.
Anyway, that'll do it for me.
That'll do it for you. All right, everyone. This has been another awesome episode of 3, 2, 1. It's Slapped. Hope you have an awesome day and stay gold.